I have been wanting to make a Steve Fox guide for the better part of 6 months. Steve, as many of you guys know, is my main, and I understand this character pretty damn well. In fact, I understand the character better than I actually play him. I told myself once I reach Tekken King, I'll make a Steve Fox guide because nobody is going to take me serious if I don't at least make Tekken King right. Then season 2 happened and completely changed my character from Steve Fox to William McPunchies. This iteration of Steve isn't Steve. This is a completely separate character with a Steve skin. And I'm going to explain how stupid and dumb this character's design has become. Steve Fox, since like Tekken 5, has been dubbed the counter hit paragon. And do you know why that is, guys? It's because this character had 7 million counter hits and could counter hit launch you at any given time. So this was a very fitting name. Steve was all about hitting your opponent at different timings and trying to catch them retaliating into your pressure with a fat counter hit. Steve's primary flaws was that he doesn't really have any good lows and his tracking wasn't the best. So in theory, an opponent can just stand there and block Steve all day. This isn't true though. Steve's entire character design is to play extremely safe at all times. So a lot of his key moves are like -3 on block, -2 on block, stuff of that nature. So pretty much there's very few opportunities you will really get to take your turn against Steve. Which means you have to pick spots in which to take your turn because you have to play the game at some point, or else Steve will pressure you endlessly and will slowly but surely chip away at you. And this is where the creativity of the Steve player comes in. Because like I said before, Steve's whole thing on offense is to hit at different timings. So while you're pressuring your opponent, you have to make reads on when your opponent is likely going to click and hit the appropriate timing. Steve's down 2-1 can transition into ducking, which is like a pressure stance, right? It's got launching mids, it's got plus on block highs. It can be super annoying to deal with. However, down 2-1 transitions at -4 on block. So your opponent, after seeing the down 2-1, can actually mash out of this and stop your transition, which would lose you your turn. However, Steve has an optional third hit to the down 2-1 string, which is a high counter hit launcher, which will catch your opponent swinging if they try to stop your transition. Another example we just talked about briefly, ducking. Ducking actually has an enhanced version called ducking in. And it's done literally by holding the duck. Now your opponent really doesn't want to deal with this because ducking in has a pretty nasty mix-up that involves a guard break. So your opponent has another opportunity to mash into you to stop this from happening. However, you still have your regular duck in moves, which will crush highs and clap your opponent for trying to mash. And if you feel like your opponent is going to mid-check you, which is a good option to do if you go into duck in with minus frames, you can simply duck cancel and sway and catch them that way, or block and just take your turn back. Like Steve can attack on every timing, bro. Like there's more stuff that I can talk about like down forward 1 and stuff, but I think you get the point. Steve's counter hits naturally tied in well with this type of offense. Back 1, as everyone knows, is a 13 frame high counter hit launcher that's -1 when transitioned to flicker. Extremely safe and spammable. Down forward 2 complemented this move by being a 16 frame mid counter hit launcher as well. Although the combo is extremely hard, it does do a lot of fucking damage though. There's other stuff like back 1 down 2-1 which would wall splat, and while standing 2 was a good while standing counter hit launcher. Weaving these counter hits into your strong pressure and using back 1 to hit openings in your opponent's pressure was how Steve would generally get his damage, right? It's slow, it's methodical until you counter punch full force into your opponent like an actual boxer. This gameplay design was flawless in my opinion. Something I didn't even bring up is how free-flowing Steve is. Like in Tekken 7, realistically Steve has 2 stances and like some fake mini stances. There's peekaboo and flicker, which are your main stances, and then there's duck in, but you can duck in left and right as well, which each have a few moves attached to them. But then there's also albatross, which has a mid-low mix, and there's backsway. Steve can transition between all of these stances flawlessly. Flicker can go into albatross with 3+4. Albatross can go into peekaboo by holding forward. Peekaboo can go into flicker by doing back 1, 1, 2, 1 and transitioning, which also makes the string safe by the way. You can transition into ducking from any of these stances with forward 3, up 3, down 3, back 3, whatever. Duck in right 1 forward goes into peekaboo. Duck in left 1 forward 1 back goes into flicker. You see where I'm going with this, right? This whole gameplay design is perfect. There was so much room for player expression with this character in Tekken 7 because you can pretty much make everything safe with duck cancels, or you can be more aggressive and evade stuff with duck in left or right or sway, or you can just click buttons and go for small mix-ups. Like with Steve at all times, there's so many viable options available to you at any given time. And at any time, you can get a fat dopamine rush by slamming your opponent with a back 1. Perfection. Tekken 8 completely ruined this entire design for absolutely no reason. But do you want to know what else is being ruined? My pubes. That's why me and the good folks at Manscaped... This isn't actually an ad. I just wanted to remind you guys to remember to like, comment and subscribe if you're liking the video. So, yeah, back to the video. Firstly, calling Steve a counter-hit paragon in 2025 is laughable. He's lost everything. Down forward 2 up until season 2 didn't even launch. And in season 2, it does launch, but the follow-up is a just frame and the input is actually harder than Shiro combo in my own opinion. So to me, and I imagine most people, it don't even launch. Peekaboo 2 doesn't counter-hit launch anymore. In fact, I'm going to talk a lot more about Peekaboo 2 because this move, man, whatever. Flicker 1 down 1 no longer screws on counter hit. In fact, I don't even know if this move even exists anymore, bro. Wait. Okay, it does. It just sucks. Ducking forward 2 no longer counter hit launches. But trust me, that is another move I'm going to talk about as well. Like all of this, off rip you've killed Steve's identity. The counter hit paragon just had half his counter hits removed. Like what the hell? So this character is basically stuck with middling pressure because most of his tools didn't really change coming into Tekken 8. And everyone is a rushdown demon in Tekken 8. So Steve is basically stuck with Tekken 7 offense for the most part because his neutral game is a lot scary when you know that 99% of the player base won't launch off of down forward 2. And with down forward 2 being weaker, that hand in hand makes back 1 weaker because now you just duck all day. The worst that's going to happen to you is you hold a 20 damage death fist that gets Steve nowhere. What Steve got to compensate for all of these nerfs is Lionheart stance, which is a crap stance. It is better than it used to be, but it is still crap. I don't care what anyone else has to say, it's just facts, bro. Lionheart 1+2 is a high launcher that breaks armor and is also a guard break on block for like 17 damage or something. I don't understand why people are so terrified of this move. This move does 17 damage, fam, just hold it. I don't understand why so many people duck this so much. The mid options that Steve can mix you with is Lionheart 1, which is a homing mid check that goes into flicker. Pretty decent move, but the damage is lacking in my opinion to be a real 50-50. Lionheart 2, however, is a mid tailspin, but it's -13 on block. All of these options are middling, I'm not gonna lie. 1+2 is a launcher that is never going to launch because there is zero reason to ever click into Lionheart whilst Lionheart 1 is a thing. Zero reason. So your opponent is guessing between a 17 damage guard break or an unsafe tailspin. Like, come on, bro. This stance isn't good. It's a mix-up, sure. Is that kinda cheesy? Sure. Compare this stance to every other mix-up stance in the game. Okay. The only really good thing about Lionheart stance is that up back 3 is British Kempo. It's a big back step that puts you into Lionheart, so you can use Lionheart 2 as a whiff punisher, which is pretty cool because it kind of leans more into Steve stealing turns and stuff, which I guess at the very least was a direction that they could go in with this character. However, as a whole, the only way to play Steve is to be a rushdown demon stance character. But like, you removed the reasons why Steve's stances were even good. You removed his counter hits from these stances and you nerfed his neutral counter hits, which complemented these stances. Like, I don't understand. Now, let's talk about Peekaboo 2 and Duck in Forward 2, the lamest moves ever created. Peekaboo 2 was a key Steve move, 14 frame high counter hit launcher, which in itself sounds pretty aight, but the reason why it was so good is because counterplay to Peekaboo is somewhat limited. You can dick jab, but you can also get launched for like 80 damage if your opponent reads that. Like, you can retaliate with jabs or something, but Peekaboo down 1 high crushes and it's plus on hit. So like, people depending on frame advantage will mid-check Peekaboo with like a down forward 1 or something. Well, Peekaboo 2 was part of an extremely punishing frame trap that would clap up mids if you was at +2, which you would get from Peekaboo down 1. So this was like a key thing to have in this stance because it was quick damage. This shit is now a forced Lionheart transition. There is no way to opt out of it, it's just Lionheart. And it's +5 on block, so it's a forced 50-50. So this sounds great, right? But what I've come to realize is that because of this move, people now duck the ever-living fuck out of you in Peekaboo. Which, once again, you would think is a good thing, right? But the thing is, Peekaboo mids are strong, but very committal. Like up forward 2, if it's blocked, will get you launched. And down forward 1-2 is duckable, and down forward 1-1 is unsafe. And because your opponent is ducking way more, you get less down 1s. So Peekaboo has literally become this stance, where you legit just pick mid or high, bro. There's no reason to condition your opponent into stuff anymore. There's no reason to just switch up your timings. You just mix, because there's barely any reward for hitting timings or conditioning your opponent anymore. You just mix. This stance just feels super committal now, which goes against Steve's character identity. Duck in forward 2 is the exact same thing, also +5 on block by the way. I can understand this one a bit more because they remove Steve's ducking guard break, but like, because of this new transition, people don't want to deal with ducking, so it makes stuff like down 2, 1-2, what I was talking about before, free as fuck. Like, only these two moves have completely dumbed down Steve's offense, all the way down. This isn't even the only thing. Heat in Tekken 8 is the single biggest problem with the game, and Steve is no longer an exception. 5 Fox Fury. This move is so dumb because this move is a mix with up back 2. Up back 2 is a homing high that goes into Lionheart at +5 on block for some godforsaken reason. And 5 Fox Fury is a 50 damage string that wall splats, but also is +11 on block. Therefore, your opponent cannot click anything or they will get clapped up by a flicker 1, which guarantees Albatross 2, which also wall splats. It's incredibly stupid and uninteractive, and once again deviates from what Steve is as a character or was. Somehow this isn't all. In Heat, Lionheart has an auto parry against mids and highs. So now Steve has a safe Kempo that if for some stupid reason your opponent hits into, will deal a full combo damage. So stupid. So what you do now in Heat is you spam Lionheart and then you duck in mix because your opponent isn't clicking buttons because they will die. Mix, 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 mix. This still isn't all. Steve has this dash, I don't know what it's called, I'm gonna be real guys. But this dash is a duck-in mix-up he can do from full screen that also has an unbreakable throw, which is essentially a Marduk tackle mix-up, and God forbid you get hit with the one throw near a wall. Also, doesn't end Heat, so you can probably Heat Smash after this as well. And speaking of Heat Smashes, Steve's is homing. It's not shown as a homing move, but it tracks ridiculously to both directions. It is homing. This character is stupid. This character is not Steve. This is William McPunchies. This character that we have in Tekken 8 currently has absolutely nothing to do with Steve Fox. Their counter hits are gone. The stance pressure is gone. All this character does is steal turns and mix. And if you're actually good at the game and have matchup knowledge, you'll back one sometimes. This is not Steve. For me specifically, I don't know how to play with this Steve. This character is objectively strong, but I don't know how to play him because I have never played a pure mix-up character before. I have played Josie, which is like a poking / stance character, but like outside of Slide, she's not really a mix-up character. I played Armor King, who is a Mishima without a Hell Sweep, so I don't think many people would classify that as a mix-up character. I played Heihachi, which is another Mishima, but Heihachi was more of like a pressure type character than a 50-50 type character. I'm not talking about Tekken 8 Heihachi here, I'm talking about Tekken 7. So like, I don't know what I'm doing with this character. The way I played Steve was definitely more aggressive than other characters that I've played before, but I like outspacing and out-timing my opponents still. That is why I don't miss Lionheart 2s. The mix-ups I was doing was small. I was going for down 2 1s, down forward 1s, down 1s, Albatross stuff, with punishing with Sonic Fang, small stuff like that. And then when they're at the wall, I'd go for stuff like down back 3-2 and more committal stuff. Nothing like super off the rails, unless I was trying to cheese out a Peekaboo up forward 2 or something, you know? Like Steve now, I don't get him, bro. I don't know if it's just me. It's just not clicking anymore. But I think that's it for the video, boys. If you liked the video, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, guys.